back, listeners of Ears, to another week of education, the Teachers Talking Terra podcast, where myself, Mike,
and myself, Courtney,
are here to talk about our first Alfred Hitchcock movie. And it is not Psycho, and it's not Rear Window, or Vertigo, or The Birds, or all of the other... I don't want to say better. I liked this movie, but I guess there are others that fit the horror genre better than this did. And so this one is definitely more of a thriller for me. This week we're covering Alfred Hitchcock's 1972 release of a movie called Frenzy, which really, if you break it down to it, this one is arguably some of the scariest content we've covered, because it is real, in a realistic sense, but the delivery was more dramatic and more thriller and suspenseful than it was straight horror, which is okay. We'll get back to that. It's good to cleanse our palate every once in a while. Yes. So Frenzy, at this point, we are late in Hitchcock's career, because I know some of his early stuff was in the 30s. So dude's been directing for multiple decades. And so, it's near the, I don't know, this may be one of his, I don't think it's his last one. Let me take a peek real quick. Get to his filmography. Let's see. Yeah, his first film was 1922.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this one was 1972. 50 years later, he's still making movies. This was his next to last film. His final film was a 1976 movie called Family Plot. God, he's so good. Even by the time we get to Psycho, after Psycho in 1960, he only made 6 more films. Wow. So when you think of all the stuff that he did, Psycho was late. Yeah. Man, I'm looking through, as I've seen a lot of this stuff. Really, really good. But this one, Frenzy, British thriller. I've seen a lot of Hitchcock, not a lot of nudity. There were some boobs in this one.
Yeah.
And that's, for the content that's covered, I guess was mildly appropriate. It would have been surprising to see no nudity in the content of this movie. We start off with our main character. We meet Richard Blaney. Matter of fact, we meet him as he's getting fired from his job as a bartender. He used to be in the Royal Air Force. He had a military career, and now he's just tending bar. And his bartender boss had it out for him. Blaney's kind of an interesting character, because I feel bad for the actor John Finch, because really, to look at him, he just looks unlikable. At least to me, he did. He just looked like a guy that you see him and you're like, I just don't like that guy.
Now, see, I thought he was attractive.
I'm not saying he wasn't attractive. I'm just saying that they did a great job with casting, because he's living in an apartment above the bar. He comes downstairs and just has a quick drink, literally like a shot. The bartender, or the bar owner, comes in, sees him take the shot, and just fires him. And he goes, I do it all the time. I pay for it every time. Mm-hmm. And even the other bartender, who is kind of like his pseudo girlfriend, she's like, he pays for it every time. He's like, I was going to put money in the till, and the owner's like, I don't care, you're fired.
Yeah.
And he just has that look about him. He's just kind of mousy in a way, and he almost you can tell the guy's just down on his luck. And so he gets fired. And he's personable. It's weird to look at a guy and say he looks unlikable, but somehow is likable is bizarre. It's a really bizarre trait. And I give John Finch a lot of credit for that, because he really performed it well. It was subtle, but at the same time, I looked at him I don't like this guy, but at the same time, I feel bad for him.
Yeah, he's the underdog, so it's you want to like him.
And so, he leaves, and he goes in and he finds his friend Rusk, Bob Rusk, who, and this guy is, these are, I'll give the British some credit, at least British in the 70s, that they're well-dressed gentlemen.
Yes.
Blaney is well-dressed for being, a part-time bartender. And he goes and finds his friend Rusk, who again is dressed in a suit as he's like runs a fruit stand.
Yeah.
Like,
he has the thickest, most luscious hair.
oh yeah, it is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it'd stop a bullet. This hair.
Like, guys are always blessed with the best hair, I feel like. Most guys.
Some of us, yeah.
Most guys.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he has very nice hair. You know, and like, he's wanting to help him out. You know, hey man, you know, you'll get him next time. You know, and he gives him a tip on a horse race coming up. You know, he's like, hey, I know what's going to happen. Here's your tip. And Blaney's like, I don't have any money. Like, because he just got fired.
Yeah.
And you get a sense that he doesn't hold his money very, very long anyway. And so, you know, that's just kind of where we're at with Blaney. He can't catch a break any way you go. And that's really the story of this movie in a nutshell. The dude can't catch a break.
He is at the wrong place at the wrong time every time.
And really that's a Hitchcock theme through a vast majority of his movies.
Okay. Is
your main character tends to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sometimes they get caught up in shenanigans like this movie, or like Psycho, where our main character, Marion Crane, just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Other times they get confused for people, which kind of happened here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking of other movies like North by Northwest and Vertigo, where they happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so, yeah, that's kind of a Hitchcockian trope, which is cool. Because you could go so many different ways with with that plot device. You just build a story around it. And so back to Blaney. He goes to visit his ex-wife, which, ironically enough, he goes to see his ex-wife, who runs a very successful matchmaking service.
She's got like the 70s Tinder.
Oh yeah,
kind of type
thing. Yeah. She's the precursor to online dating for sure.
Yeah.
And she's a pleasant lady. She really is. Brenda's her name. She's, again, buttoned up, successful. She cares about him still.
Yeah.
And so he goes to her, and he's just complaining. Like, you could tell they still have a decent relationship as ex-partners.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of get into a little argument, which is pretty standard for a formerly married couple. But still, you know, she's like, well, you know, what are you going to do later? And he's like, I don't know. She's like, well, hopefully you'll have dinner with me. Like, she still cares enough to be like, look, I know I'm not married to you, but I don't want to see you, like, fail.
Yeah.
Which is nice, because a lot of broken marriages, they do kind of want to see the other one fail. So I like Brenda. You know, again, Blaney, he's doing his best to keep up his appearance. He's got no money. She offered, well, I don't remember. Did she give him any money?
Didn't she offer it to him?
Yeah.
But he didn't, like, something, embarrassed. I don't know why.
Yeah.
He didn't take it or something. And then later that night, he stayed at the Salvation Army, and that's when he had realized she slipped it in his coat pocket.
Oh, that's right. I knew he got money from her. Couldn't remember. Yeah, that's right. She slipped it in his pocket. And so, he stayed the night at Salvation Army. The guy across the cot just tries to pickpocket it, but he catches him. You know, gets his money back, and so the next day, the whole pretense of this movie is, while everything's going on with Blaney, there are random murders happening in London. I'm guessing this is London.
Yes. Okay.
There's murders going on, and they all have the same MO. It's the necktie killer.
Yes.
The necktie murderer. Which
reminds me of the Kansas City Strangler.
Yeah.
That was like 1977.
Yeah. It wouldn't, this movie it made 6 times its money, so I don't know how prevalent it was here in the States, but who knows? Could have been an inspiration.
Yeah.
But the movie starts with like even before we meet Blaney, we've got a naked body like washing up in like the channel, you know, like the channel or whatever, you know, in the water. She's naked, floating. She's got a necktie around her neck, and that's really how these murders are happening. Is there are they appear to be sexual in nature, and they are always the result of somebody being strangled with a necktie and then just left somewhere. And so that's where all this kind of comes in. So we know that there's these murders happening. They've been happening. There's no lead on anyone. And that's when we meet Blaney. And honestly, there was never one moment, even before we saw who the murderer was, there was never a moment I thought it was him.
No.
Because Hitchcock did a good job of establishing that this guy's just down on his luck and in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like, he's been taking those shots from his bar for God knows how long. But today, the owner caught him.
Yep.
And even then, like, he didn't try to hide it. It was just, oh, I pay for it every time.
Yeah.
And so, Blaney's buddy Rusk shows up at Brenda's agency.
Yeah. And he's been turned away because he wants, like, a girl who, like, wants to be hurt, kind of, almost. Like, he's just got these creepy, weird kinks.
Just these tendencies. Like, he's looking for a girl of a certain, not even look or feature set, but just, and that's such a weird thing. Like, online, I think you could put that in a profile. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
Online, I think you could put that and it doesn't feel as inappropriate, but I would think like an in-person dating service. For the guy to walk in and be like, I'm looking for a girl that likes it rough. But then for a girl to come in and be like, I'm looking for a guy that likes it rough. Like, that likes to hurt women. Like, it just seems like, I don't know. So he shows up. Like you mentioned, they turn him away because the guy's a creep. At least in this sense, because really when we met him earlier with Blaney, he was fine. But I don't think people typically wear their sexual preferences on their sleeve.
Yes.
But in a dating service capacity, you're gonna kind of put that forward. And Brenda had sent her secretary away, like to run an errand or something. I don't know. It's inconsequential. And when Rusk shows up, and right away we realize Rusk is the necktie killer. He finds Brenda alone, a very uncomfortable rape scene. And I want to give Hitchcock credit because, like, this scene was the scariest scene in the movie.
It was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable.
He's saying, like, love me.
Right.
And just, like, repeatedly. And you can see the fear in her eyes when she realizes, like, what's about to happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she's telling him no. She knows the man. Because he's been trying to get there. And he's like, you're just the woman I've been looking for.
Yeah.
And he rapes her. And then takes his necktie off and strangles her with it. So we now know right now, this is pretty early in the movie, that Rusk is the necktie killer, the necktie murderer. I like this reveal. At first I wasn't sure, but as the movie went on, I understood how important it was.
Yeah.
I really like this reveal because in a lot of movies, they don't reveal who the killer is until like the third act. And even I watched a movie the other day, 90s movie called Kiss the Girls. It's a suspense thriller, and I won't say a similar storyline, but you've got a man that is abducting women, and he keeps them in a basement. That kind of thing. But the guy wears a mask. You could tell he's using a different voice. Like, up until literally the last 10 minutes of the movie, you find out who it is. And that's all well and good. Like, that's how these movies work most of the time. But for Hitchcock to be like, look, I want you guys to know who it is right now.
Yeah. And it makes it even more, like, aggravating almost. Like, you know, when he gets thrown in, because it's like, no, I know who did it. Like, I know.
Yeah, and I thought it was
I hate that.
I thought it was just honestly like a brilliant decision of Hitchcock to be like, we're going to reveal the killer now, so that you as an audience can live with this and know what's going on, and we could show. Typically in a movie like this, they show, like when I was watching that Kiss the Girls, we were watching the main character's story path, and then occasionally, like, the kidnapper would pop in. You know, like, it would cut to a scene where he's kidnapping another person. And then it's almost like they just drop in, drop out. You know, whereas this movie, it's like Rusk is now a main character, too.
Yeah.
And so we're following what he's doing. At the same time, we're following what Blaney's doing. And we're just hoping, because we've already seen their paths cross once at the beginning of the movie, it makes it even more uncomfortable every time they cross again. Because it's like, we see Blaney and Rusk on screen together, and we're like, that, you know, we can't do anything about it, you know? And so, you know, so Rusk leaves, you know, he tells Brenda, because she's like, my sister will be back any minute. He's like, I locked the door. She can't get in.
Yeah.
You know? The only drawback I had is the looks on the faces of the women in this movie after they were strangled was so cartoonish.
It was so cheesy. Like, because like when it came back to her and she's like, like, I'm like, honey, that's the kind of face I made in 8th grade when we were told to do a silly face.
Right.
Like, you know, we thought we were cool doing that. Like, no.
I mean, but yeah, it was goofy. Maybe that was intentionally done just to kind of lighten the tension a bit. But regardless, it was a little goofy. So Rusk leaves. Blaney shows up.
Yeah.
Like, because again, he just wants to talk to his ex-wife. The office is locked, so he leaves. You know, not a big deal. Like, oh, they must not be here. And as he's leaving, her secretary shows up from lunch. She's coming back from lunch. She sees Blaney leaving. Well, then she gets back into the office and finds Brenda dead. So, understandably so, she's like, Blaney did it.
Prime suspect right there.
Yeah, like, I saw she was dead, he was leaving, case closed.
Yeah.
So now, like, it's in the papers that he's, you know, Richard Blaney is the necktie murderer. He's on the loose. We got to get him. You know, Blaney meets up again with his girlfriend. I'm going to call her his girlfriend. Because
that's just,
She worked at the bar with him. She cares about him. He cares about her. You know, Babs is her name.
Yeah.
And meets up with her. And, of course, she's read the newspapers, and he's like, it's not me. Like, you know, it's not me. You know me. It's not me. I wouldn't do that, you know. And so she does what any woman would do. Like, oh, well, you didn't rape and murder this woman? Yeah. Okay, well, let's go have sex. So let's go do that. And it's like, whatever, you know. I'm sure it was a sigh of relief for her as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, they just missed the police. Like, the police show up looking for them as they'd left. They go find one of Blaney's, like, military buddies.
Yeah.
And again, just well-dressed people, like, top to bottom. Like, everybody is, like, they sleep in a suit kind of thing.
Yeah.
Shows that, and his buddy is like, hey, I know him. He's fine. You know, he's good. The wife, though, good for the wife.
She does. She sticks up for herself.
And she's like, nope.
I'm not holding a criminal on the loose. Like, right. No. And I did like how she's like, when he's like, no, he's staying, and she's like, I'm going shopping.
Right. Like, I'm fine. I'm out.
I'm like, but where? Because they're getting ready for bed, and you're going shopping?
Yeah. Midnight District. It's London. Somebody's open in London.
Yeah.
And they had the appearance that they could afford to go to wherever's open in London. And so Blaney stays at the friend's house and tells Babs, go get your stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. Go get my stuff.
Because they're gonna fly away.
Yeah, this is all the same day.
Yeah.
Like, he got fired that morning. This is all the same day. So he hadn't had a chance to get his stuff from the bar. She's like, can you go get my stuff? Because they're gonna get me out of here. Because it's not me. Like, I didn't do it. She's like, yeah, I'll do it. And so on her way back to the pub, she runs into Rusk.
Right. She had made it back to the pub, and she was like bickering with the owner.
Yeah.
And Rusk overheard.
Oh, right.
Like, he was at the end of the bar, overheard them fighting. So then, that's when Rusk like slides in, like, hey, I heard you, and I can fix your problems.
Right. He offers to let them stay at his place. Yeah. Kind of thing. You guys could stay at my place.
Because he's going away, so why not?
Right. Yeah. And so let me show you where it's at. And again, she kind of knows him. Mm-hmm. She knows Russ because he sells fruit just around the corner. Like, it's, Blaney's buddy. And she willingly goes with him. Like, oh, you're being a lifesaver,
Yeah.
Because she was there with the military couple the guy was fine. The wife didn't want him there. So she was like, this would be great. This would be great. So they go up to his apartment, and we are left outside. Mm-hmm. Another great filmmaking choice. Because we know Rusk is the necktie murderer. And we watch her go up into his apartment. The cameraman stays at the bottom of the stairs. We watch her go in, and as he's closing the door, he says something along the lines of, you're almost like you're the kind of woman I've been looking for.
Yeah.
Something like that. Door closes, scene fades out, and we know that's it. She's dead. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we sit there with the ability to do nothing.
Yep. And just, like, as you go and, like, you see the mirror or the windows of where they're at, like, it's like, no.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because they kind of did that. They did that pullback shot where they, like, the cameraman stuck there and then backed out. And as they're, they back out to the street and life is just happening. And we know that as London is happening on the street, like, her life is ending upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, just, I tell you, the guy's, this... 50 years later, he made this movie. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's such a man. Never won an Oscar.
Really?
Never. Huh. He was never considered the best director any year of any film he's made.
Wow.
So, yeah. I can't tell you what movies were nominated and won Best Picture and Best Director in the years he was nominated.
Yeah.
But I can tell you Hitchcock was one of the best. And so we get kind of this weird scene where of Rusk trying to get rid of the body.
Yeah.
And this scene, it went on really long. Like, on the simplest plan, because he had like this lapel pin with an R for Rusk. He takes her body and puts it in like a potato sack and like throws it into the back of a truck that's hauling potatoes. Like, done. They'll find her body somewhere else and it would be pinned on the delivery driver. So it seems like a fairly foolproof plan to get rid of the body.
Yeah.
Until he gets back to his apartment and discovers that he's missing that pin. And realizes that if that pin is discovered, eventually they'll trace it back to me. It can't have this. Which, admirable that he recognizes that, because a lot of times, like in a movie, that's where they would leave it. Mm-hmm. Is that he's looking for his pin and he can't find it, so that's how they trace it back to him.
Yeah.
Rusk is smarter than this. So he realizes that, he kind of replays it. She must have ripped it off me when I was strangling her. knowing that it's going to pin me to it, no pun intended. He goes back to the truck, climbs in. Of course, it's full of potato sacks.
Yeah.
So now he's got to find the potato sack with the dead body in it. As he's doing this, the driver gets in the truck and drives away. So
it's one of those oh shoot moments.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of fun to watch. I thought it went on probably a little too long, but it was kind of fun to watch because typically movies like this just we follow Blaney everywhere. Mm-hmm. But now we're following the murderer to see what the murderer is up to, and now he's trying to clean up. He eventually there's potatoes falling on the ground, He eventually does find the body with Babs, or the bag with Babs' body in it. That's a mouthful.
And I don't know how quick rigor mortis sets in.
In London, really fast.
But for just a couple hours.
I don't even think it was that long.
Wow. She is, stiff.
Yeah. He had to break her fingers to get the pin out of her hand. And so they get to their destination. He's still in the back of the truck. He gets out, and they the driver stopped at a cafe. And it didn't get to the destination. Stops at a cafe. He also gets out of the back and goes into the cafe just to clean himself up. He's sweaty. He's been working.
A mess.
They eventually find Babs' body because the truck driver drives on. Her body just falls out of the back of the truck.
Luckily, a police officer is following them.
Yeah, runs her over. Luckily. But yeah, so Rusk made no effort to hide the body back. He got the pin and left the body. The body falls out of the back of the truck. There's no way that was a stunt woman. They had to have had a dummy. Even though it was a pretty good dummy.
Yeah.
But it's man, that's a lot of work to ask a stunt woman, hey, strip down nude and fall naked out of the back of a truck onto a road from a moving vehicle. So obviously Babs' body is discovered. They again pin it on Blaney because that's his girlfriend. The last two people murdered are his ex-wife and his girlfriend. Blaney has no idea Rusk is the murderer.
No, so he makes a decision to go for him.
Listen,
I need to stay somewhere. Can I stay with you? And he's of course, hide out in my flat. No problem.
Yeah.
So they head up there, and Rusk is I'll take your bag. You don't carry your bag, I'll carry it. Which you knew something
fishy
was, yes. And so they get up there, and seconds later, the police have barged in.
Yep.
Arresting Blaney for the murder.
Which, okay, Rusk, we know it's Rusk, but nobody else knows it is.
Exactly.
But he set him up. He tipped off the police.
Because he knows they get there.
Yeah, because Rusk knows the police are looking for Blaney.
Uh-huh.
And this is his way to cover himself.
Yeah. And out of his bag, they pull Babs' clothes and purse. And that is he's no, this is Rusk. I know, and that's where it kicks. And
yeah. So now it's this bizarre. It's weird because it's the third act starts now, but we have our hero under arrest. So it's the only man who knows the truth about the murderer is incarcerated.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Rusk is free. The jury finds Blaney guilty, which we knew they would. He pleads his innocence, says Rusk is the killer. Nobody really believes him except one chief inspector, who we've seen off and on through the whole movie.
Who has the sweetest wife ever.
I know. It's,
oh my gosh.
The comic relief of this little bit is so funny. His wife loves to cook exotic meals.
Yeah, and she's like signed up for this like chef's class or whatever, and she's like, you can't even pronounce what she's making,
No.
but one of them is like a soupy broth, and it just has like fish heads in it, like eyes and all, and it's like, I think I ate some of that in Taiwan, and I was about as excited as he was.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, stereotypically, like, British cuisine gets a hard pass.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people, I think, consider it boring. You know, it's just, like, very bland and trite.
Yes.
Which is what makes this funny, because she's going above and beyond as this British housewife of like, I'm going to prepare these meals, and and watching him figure out ways to hide it, like pouring the soup back into the bowl when her back's turned, like it's comical, and that's all we know of this like Chief Inspector Oxford is his wife stuff. Well, he's a good cop,
yes,
and he reconsiders, and I won't say he opens the case, but he quietly is keeping an eye on Rusk. He's kind of looking through the evidence, and he, in an effort to keep this secret, he really just confides in his wife. And he's dropping, you know, because again, he's just a male police officer, and he's trying to get the women's perspective on things. But it is funny because, like, all of these, it's easy to miss this because if you're watching these scenes with him and his wife and you're focusing on the comedy of it, you're going to miss all of the police work.
Yeah.
Because he's bouncing ideas off his wife and she's just very casually, well, this doesn't make sense and it could be this. And it's just kind of really interesting scenes. They're definitely more dynamic and important than just the food.
Yeah.
So Blaney's in prison, and so he's got a plan to escape. He purposely injures himself so that he could go to the hospital. And he gets help from like the other inmate patients.
Yeah.
You know, so that he could escape the hospital.
Yeah. Goes back to, we said, like, he's an unlikable, likable guy.
Right. Like, you know, everybody in this hospital ward has basically been saving their sleeping pills.
Uh-huh.
And they drug the guards soup or whatever. And so Blaney escapes. Like, and he escapes really without harm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody gets hurt when he escapes. It's not like he fought his way free. And he goes to Rusk's. He's like, I've got him. So, he goes back to Rusk's apartment and quietly walks in, and there is somebody sleeping in the bed that has the same head of hair as Rusk. You know, they lead us to believe that Rusk is asleep. That's what Blaney believes, that he's asleep. He basically grabs, I don't remember what he grabbed, but he grabs something and starts beating.
Yeah, he had like a crowbar out of someone's trunk or something.
Yeah, so he like starts beating Rusk with a crowbar, whips back the blanket. It's not Rusk. It's another raped and murdered woman
with a silly face.
Right.
And what are the odds, except for that the investigator opens the door at that time.
Yeah,
and he's like standing there like, no.
I know, and it's like you feel like they really build it up to be like, oh, like you feel for him.
Yes.
You feel so bad for Blaney. You're like, oh man, we
know. Sorry, I keep cutting you off.
No, it's fine.
They had like built up, I felt, this tension with the music and like the close cuts of like watching his hand glide up the stairwell. Like, I'm like, something bad's gonna happen. Like, Rusk is gonna be there waiting for him. Something, like, what's going to happen? And then it's like, he's caught again for the wrong thing.
Yeah. But we have the benefit that Oxford doesn't really believe Blaney is the killer.
Yeah.
Because he walks in, he sees this, I mean, let's face it, he sees this woman naked in bed, strangled with a necktie. But Blaney is standing over her with a crowbar.
Yeah.
That's not how these women have been killed. And Oxford is smart enough to realize that Blaney's been incarcerated. Like, he just escaped from a hospital. He knows he just escaped from the hospital. He came to investigate Rusk, finds Blaney there. I think he quickly deduces, I don't think you've been doing it anyway. Why else would the cop be showing up at Rusk's apartment if he thought Blaney was the killer? Well, we think, oh no, like, even if you're watching the runtime of this movie, you realize there's literally like 3 minutes left in the movie. So we still, we're thinking, oh, but Blaney's busted again for something he didn't do. But then they both hear something loud coming down the stairs. And Oxford hides behind the door. Rusk enters dragging this large, like, trunk that he's going to hide the body in. And he sees Blaney, kind of smiles, but then sees Oxford steps out from behind the door, and Rusk realizes the jig is up.
Yep.
He kind of drops the trunk in defeat. Roll credits. Like, we've known it's Rusk the whole time.
Yes.
So just to see him apprehended is good enough for us.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
We don't need to see a trial. We don't need to see him go. Like, anything extra than how this ended would have been just extra. It would have been a waste of time.
Yes.
Like, he's caught. We see he's caught. The good guy gets... I mean, Blaney wasn't in prison that long. Like,
right.
His name is cleared. It's unfortunate, though, because his wife and his girlfriend are both... Or his ex-wife and girlfriend are both dead. I find romance is probably going to be a little tough for Richard Blaney moving forward. But we at least know that he's free and clear. And that is 1972 Alfred Hitchcock's Frenzy. Did you like it?
I did.
Good. I
did.
I wasn't worried whether you would like it, but it definitely was not as horrific as other movies we've watched.
Right. And, like, that is where I have learned, because I think how this all got started was, like, because I tweeted I wanted to watch a scary movie, and I have quickly learned that, like, horror is the umbrella.
Yes.
Scary is just a genre in that genre.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a trait.
Yes.
Like, a movie can be a horror film without jump scares.
Correct.
And as a woman watching this movie hit you different than it hit me. And so
because this stuff happens.
Yes, unfortunately it does far too often. So, well, let's hit the grade book for this one.
Okay.
What do you give 1972's Frenzy?
I am going to give this one a B+. Just because, like, there's not a lot of, like, horror or gore jump scares, but it's still, I mean, it is still scary because, like I had said earlier, like, this stuff has happened in America. Like, this, I mean, unfortunately, this stuff's happening, like, today.
Yeah.
So, it is scary.
Yeah, I agree. I think a B+ is a good grade. I'm going to give it the same. I think this portrayal of sexual abuse is more accurate than what we see in a lot of movies. Like I mentioned, Kiss the Girls from before.
Yeah.
It was a fine movie. It was a good thriller. But, that movie consisted of a man in a mask sneaking into homes, kidnapping multiple women.
Yeah.
Taking them to a secluded area where they're all in an elaborate underground cave of cells with electricity. It's like, you think too much about some of the, like, when they build things up to be scary, sometimes they're, if you think too much, they're too elaborate.
Yes.
Like, this was in this one, there were like 8 to 10 women kidnapped and trapped, all of them having their individual cell in this underground cave of cells. Like, I just look at it as like, okay, who dug this out? Who ran, like, it starts to fall apart. A movie like this where it's like, there's the neighborhood guy raping and killing women and keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, that stuff happens. Mm-hmm. That stuff
happens. He's a well-known guy.
Yeah. That the statistics are there that the likelihood of the person you've been sexually abused by is someone that you know and someone close to home. Like, those things are prominent. And so this felt, outside of the cartoonish look on the women's faces, but that's okay, because almost in a sense it's like, it almost felt like that was a choice of Hitchcock's to be like, we need to show that these women really are okay. Like, yes,
because it is like those rape scene, that the one that we had seen,
with
like
Brenda,
it was like raw and like real.
The camera was close up every scene, like, and that, again, a deliberate choice, because the majority of this movie was not close-up shots. Like, it was wide shots or medium close-up, but it's like there were things in the frame, whereas that rape scene, that cameraman was right in there. Like, when he's, not to get too graphic, but like when he's peeling back Brenda's bra, like, there's only room on camera for part of her chest. Like, that's how close the camera was. When we see Rusk's face, it's like just his head. There's no room for for his chest in the shot. Like, it's really intimate with the camera work, because it's a really intimate scene, not in a sensual way, but just what was being showcased was uncomfortable. I've seen a lot of movies, and so I've seen rape scenes, unfortunately, in movies, and there aren't very many that really come off as realistic. From what I would assume would be realistic. I've never been, thankfully, never been around one. But this was one of them that felt like, we need to do this right, because we're not really making a scary movie, but this can be scary, and it was. Yeah. And it really was. So, what do you got as a lesson, I suppose?
This one's hard, because I don't know. I think, like, something that you kind of had just said, like, a lot of times, and this really, like, this lesson I think is a little bit heavier. A lot of times people are abused by those that, like, they know. And I think that it's important for parents or guardians, whoever you have, like, have that open communication with your child, because it happens way more than you would think with people that you know and you trust. And I think that, like, just having that open line of communication and, like, letting them know, like, I'm here, I believe you, is very important, because I think a lot of kids would go forward more or tell someone, like, if they knew that somebody would believe them.
Right. Well put.
Not really in the classroom educational, but just...
No, right, but just life in general. I'm going to go back to a similar lesson I pulled from the first Scream movie, and there's probably, I think, one other one of, okay, if there is a series of rape murder incidents going around, don't go somewhere with someone by yourself. Like with Scream, if there's teenagers being murdered, don't let your kids go anywhere. Like, and that's kind of what it was here. Like, Babs, Rusk did a good job of convincing her that he's safe, which we knew he wasn't, but there still should have been some little alarm being like, no, I'm not going to go to this man's apartment by myself. I don't really know him that well. Mm-hmm. And it ended up costing her his life.
Yeah. Like, she could have just been like, okay, we'll meet you. Yeah. Like,
Blaney knows where you live. We'll come find you. I know for the plot she had to, but it just seemed like, once there's two.
Yeah.
And there were multiple.
And they have the same MO and every, like...
Then, like, with Brenda, I understand. Brenda's was a little different because he went to her place of work. Like...
Yes.
You know, but even the woman at the end, like, I want to know a little bit, like, where'd Russ get her?
Yeah.
Was she just out for a walk? Like, these are the kind of things that, like, protect yourself. We saw prior to that last rape murder at the very end of the movie, we saw 3 others. We saw Babs, we saw Brenda, we saw that woman that washed up on the shore. So there's at least 3 going on. And this, London is a big city.
Yeah.
These are all going on in the same neighborhood. You know, like, if you're a woman in that neighborhood, don't go anywhere by yourself.
Yes.
And so that's kind of, I mean, it sucks. World sucks today. It's scary out there. It's terrible. Protect yourself at all costs. At all costs. So, all right. We move on to another movie.
Should we have Ella back?
Oh, yes.
Do you think she really wants to come back?
Yes. Yeah, she's been driving me a little bit nuts this last week because we slid Frenzy in after Dust Devil, and she thought she was coming up next. And I'm like, well, we watched another one just to get something else in. I told her, I said, with it summer, honey, it's, you know, we're going to watch more. We might be doing more than one a week. It's okay. So we will be back next week. Next episode. Who knows how soon it'll be. We'll be back next episode with Scream 3. Ella will be returning, and we will be covering the 3rd installment of the Scream franchise. Every time Scream 3 comes... You were there yesterday, but she's like, do you like that one?
I know.
God, I'm so tired of answering that question. It falls in the formula of the rest of them. I will tell you that there are 6 of them out. The first 2 I've seen more often than the others. Scream 3 I've seen quite a bit as well. It's fun. We take Sydney to California, actually to Hollywood, where she is on the set. If you remember from Scream 2, there was that movie within a movie, Stab. Well, she's on the set. She goes to be a consultant on the set of Stab 2. So Scream 3 takes place as they're making Stab 2.
So does, like, Scream 4 have Stab 3 in it?
I believe so, but I've only seen Scream...
Don't remember 100%?
No, I've only seen Scream 4 once and Scream 5 once, and I haven't seen Scream 6 at all. And so I don't mind Scream 3. It feels more comedic than the first 2, but it's not a comedy.
Yeah.
But I think by the time they get to the 3rd one, it's kind of weird because the first one was very meta of like, we're going to make a horror film, but we're going to talk about horror films within our horror film while we're making a horror film. And so it was so new and so fresh. Scream 2, we take her to college, and we wonder where you're going to go now because you just had the 2 murderers from the first one are dead. But Scream 2 still revealed 2 more murderers.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now the cat's out of the bag. You know, after 2 of them that have kind of had the same formula, you know what to expect with Scream 3. So it almost feels more like a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah. Of
like, okay, I'm pretty sure there's going to be 2 killers. Who are they? How are they related to Sydney? You know, that kind of thing. So it's almost like the filmmaker, and it's the same director, Wes Craven, still directing. But it's almost like he's like, okay, everybody knows what to expect now.
Yeah.
We completely blindsided him with the first one. We tricked him into the same formula with the second one. Now everybody's expecting it, so where can we go with it? Yeah. And so it's fun in that regard, which is why, again, you get the movie within a movie. You've got Gale Weathers, but then you also have the character who is playing Gale Weathers in Stab.
Yeah.
So like they're teamed up, and it's just kind of fun to see Gale and her on-screen persona of Gale.
Yeah.
Working together. you see, it's like, so you have that kind of dynamic. You have Dewey, and then you have Dewey's on-screen counterpart, which is weird because Dewey himself is a character. So, so it's again, this extra layer of the onion of like, this is kind of fun. Now there's 2 Deweys, and there's 2 Gales, and there's 2 of that character, and but they're not exactly the same because, of course, one of them is an on-screen representation of an on-screen representation of. It gets confusing, but the movie's not as confusing. But so it is fun. I would say it's fun. There's a lot of people. I'll kind of give a precursor without giving anything away. There's the reason why Scream 3 gets a bad rap is a lot of people feel that the tie-ins to Sydney is a stretch,
okay.
And that's really, I think, where it gets its bad rap. As a movie, it's not bad, but people, it's a little groan-worthy of like, like.
Well, and by the time you're making a third movie,
exactly.
I mean, they're lucky that there's so many and they're still so popular because usually the sequel is not as good as the first one.
Especially in horror films.
Yeah. How many people can you kill?
Right. Tap down those expectations. Because horror movies, by the time you start making sequels, you're making it for money.
Yeah.
You're not making it to necessarily extend a storyline. You're like, let's get a lower budget because people they're here to see the kills.
Yes.
So let's bring in some, because like you look at all the Friday the 13th and Halloweens and Nightmare on Elm Streets, like they're not good, but they made a ton of money because people are like, hey, I know what to expect with this franchise. Let's get there and do it.
Yeah.
So we will be back with Scream 3 next week. Next episode, whenever that may be. It's summer. Who cares about weeks anymore?
Yeah.
But we'll be back with Scream 3. Social media-wise, you can find us on all your usual hangouts, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I say usual, but I say that as like an old man. Like,
I know, I'm like, what do they do now?
Yeah. Like
we're not on Snapchat, sorry.
Yeah, we're not on Snapchat. We're not on TikTok. We're not on Mastodon. Or,
we don't have a Be Real or anything like that.
You're not going to find us there, guys. Sorry. But we'll be back with Scream 3 next week for another week of education. I'm Mike.
And I'm Courtney.
And we'll see you guys with Scream 3.
Bye.